Hello and welcome to Multimedia Technology here in a very sunny Norfolk. Today we're looking at multi-touch within PreSonus' Studio One version 3 and in particular how that runs on the Surface Pro 3. Sound on Sound magazine asked me to write a review of Studio One, which should be out in the September issue, so released round about the middle of August. So if you want to know all the full, in-depth detail about what I think about Studio One, then breeze on down to your newsagents and pick up a copy, or you can also download it from their website for about 99p. This is one of two videos I've produced as a companion to that review. The first one was all about sort of the mechanics of multi-touch and how well that works on a big multi-touch screen. This video focuses specifically on the Surface Pro 3. You'll find a link to the other video in the description below, or otherwise, let's get to it. Following on from my Sound on Sound review, you've probably gathered by now that I really like the new version of Studio One. However, with the Surface Pro 3, it's a bit of a different animal, and things haven't worked out perhaps as well as they could. The difficulty seems to be in the area of touch, because with the Surface, you are always pulled in and encouraged to touch and fiddle and to pen around and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, with the initial release, the multi-touch was really quite terrible. There were all sorts of issues with the program. Would lock up, it would freeze, you would try to do a tap and hold right click and it would just get stuck. In the editor you try to create notes and it would create sort of weird ghost notes and graphical errors. There was a lot of sort of messy stuff going on that anyone who wasn't using the Surface probably didn't see. I mean, a lot of it was also similar on my larger desktop touchscreen as well, but it was far more pronounced on the Surface. With the 3.01 update, a lot of those things were fixed, certainly on the main big touchscreen, but there were still issues remaining on the Surface Pro 3, and they were particularly focused or pronounced around the digital pen. So most of the normal functionality is there using your fingers, but as soon as you brought the pen in, you found a greater amount of difficulty. A lot of these problems seem to be down to the scaling. If you turned off the high DPI mode, then that improved the stability, but it was still kind of a bit flaky. So if you turned off the scaling entirely and put the Surface purely at 100% scaling, so everything is very small, it worked a whole lot better. But still, whenever you introduce the pen, it's become unstable. You'd get crashing and freezing and unknown exception errors, and at times I have to sort of hard reset the Surface in order to just get out of the problem. With the latest update, 3.02, a lot of those issues again have been tidied up, and now I can run it at proper scaling, say 150%, so everything's not too small, and with my fingers it seems to be working really well. However, again, when I introduce the pen, it seems to bring with it a whole load of instability. Let me see if I can demonstrate this for you. So let's load up a demo song and I'll do a whole bunch of touchiness with my fingers and see what happens.
Start your hips to moving, a fat funk. It'll get your body grooving, a fat funk. If you want to party down, you gotta have some a fat funk. To all of you pretty girls and handsome guys, if you want to get your chance, come on, get on out on the dance floor and show them that you can dance. Oh, listen to me when I say a fat funkin' is the only way to get a whole lot more of what we need in the world today. Fat funk, it'll start your hips to moving. That funk, it'll get your body grooving. That funk, if you want to party down, gotta have some that funk. You wanna please, it'll start you used to moving. That funk, it'll get your body grooving. That funk, if you want to party down, gotta have some that funk. Need in the world today. That funk, it'll start you used to moving. That funk, it'll get your body grooving. That funk, if you want to party down, gotta have some that funk. You wanna please.
Now if I introduce the pen, let's see what happens.
Give them something to shout about. Tell them what we're talking about. That funk, it'll start you used to moving. That funk, it'll get your body grooving. That funk, if you want to party down, you gotta have some that funk. To all of you pretty girls and handsome guys, if you want to get your chance, get on out on the dance floor and show them that you can dance. Oh, listen to me when I say a fat funkin' is the only way to get a whole lot more of what we need in the world today. A fat funk, it'll start you used to moving. A fat funk, it'll get your body grooving. A fat funk, if you want to party down, you gotta have some that funk. If you wanna please your man, give him the best that you can. You gotta shake it down and make him want you more. And if you wanna show your girl that you can really rock her world, play some fat funk and get her out on the floor. Really rock her world, play some fat funk and get her out on the floor.
So, you know, the mix has disappeared, I've got strange graphical errors going on, and all of that since I introduced the pen. And I haven't seen any of these problems when I'm just using my fingers. Let's try something else. So let's just create a new project. Let's stick in a Mai Tai. I seem completely incapable of making that any bigger. There we go. Pen. Let's make a couple of bars. Oops. Loop that. Go to the editor. Find our little loop. Now with the pencil tool, I can just tap in like so. So let's add some automation to that. Ooh. So far so good. So far so tuneless. So that seems to be working well. Let's use the pen and see how that affects the outcome. Well, it didn't take very long until I've now got an unexpected error and it's kind of crashed, or has it? Because it's still going and I can stop it. But anything I do now seems to create another problem, or does it? Yeah, I now can't touch or move anything. That's completely frozen up. Rats. See, that's so desperately annoying, because the thing with a pen is that it works completely differently to touch. It has its own driver, has its own APIs, and can be used completely independently. So in a DAW like FL Studio 12, for instance, they use the finger and the pen differently in the arrange page, in the editors, so you could do different things with each. There's a video online of the keynote done by Microsoft at the Summer NAMM that's just passed. And in it they demonstrated Bitwig using touch on the Surface Pro 3 and the pen for doing completely different and creative things within their software. So when a DAW manufacturer is introducing multi-touch into their software, there's an opportunity with a device like the Surface Pro 3 and the digital pen to do something really creative and interesting. And it seems, at this time at least, that PreSonus really haven't got to grips with what the pen is about. And currently, on the Surface Pro 3, the pen is going to let you down. In all other respects, using a mouse and using your fingers and maybe even plugging the keyboard back in, then the Surface Pro 3 works like a charm with Studio One. The sizing of it, now that they've got the scaling sorted out, is far better. It's very usable with the fingers. You can get right in there and do stuff, but also if you're just going to step back a little bit and use a mouse and keyboard, it works brilliantly for that as well. In previous videos with the Surface Pro 3, I've talked about the toolbar creator, where you can have this set of keyboard shortcuts because you don't have the keyboard attached necessarily. A bunch of shortcuts for simple things like copy, paste and such like is really useful when using touch, particularly when married up with the pen. Now, can't use the pen with Studio One on here, it crashes, so we've established that. However, using something like the toolbar creator is still an awesome tool for when you're using fingers. Now, as I mentioned in the other multi-touch video, Studio One has something called the macro toolbar, and that is superb on the Surface Pro 3. So you press your little Android weird roboty button up there, and I've just put in a couple of my own commands and made them big enough to finger properly with this. I mean, a lot of the commands that are in here are kind of designed to be time saving and quite intense and deep and that kind of thing, whereas actually all I want is copy and paste. Because with a finger, to do copy and paste, I've got to tap on something, wait for it to be selected, go to edit, go to copy, then put this over here, and then perhaps tap and right click, then paste. There we go. So yeah, great. Whereas if I use my little macro toolbar, I can just go copy, move it over here, paste, and it's done. Or I can use duplicate, even better. I can undo that or delete that. I can select that and then go loop. Just a bunch of really simple commands that make it so much easier to use touch. So that is something that PreSonus have got dead right, even if they had no idea what they were doing because it was introduced in the version before touch came along. Doesn't matter. It's still one of the most awesome features if you're using fingers in Studio One. So there you go. Please check out the other video about multi-touch, which has a lot more depth into how you use multi-touch with Studio One, what works, what doesn't work, that kind of thing. So with the yawning tap and hold workflow and the digital pen issues, it seems that the Surface Pro 3 is probably not the best platform for Studio One at the moment. And that's a shame because Studio One is a great piece of software that's really come into its own with version 3. If PreSonus can fix the pen issues, or maybe even better, develop something to make the pen more creatively interesting, then this could all change for the better. And I'm inclined to think that they will, considering the improvements they've made in the 2 updates they've released already. The slowness in editing when using touch is still the biggest flaw, but when using the console and synths, it's really very awesome indeed. And I haven't even mentioned the fabulous multi-instrument and effects chainer ability to put touch controls onto non-touch plugins. And if you want to know more about that, then pick up a copy of September's Sound on Sound magazine for the full review, or download it from their website. So thanks for watching, and join us again when we'll be doing some more fabulous reviews and news and opinions on all sorts of multi-touchable, surfaceable things. In the meantime, go make some more tunes.